Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Now today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from TOLLEY, LexisNexis. It's part of their tax books, the titles they produce in terms of tax law. They are preeminently the leading publishers, in my view, certainly of this sort of work, which is extremely helpful to anybody who is involved in this particular area of legal activity. The book we're looking at is one we reviewed before. It's called TOLLEY'S Expatriate or Expatriate Tax Planning 2014 to 15. It's this book here. It's been written by Amanda Sullivan. There we go. And there's the spine, and then there's a very nice piece on the back. And not that I'm blowing my own trumpet or our own trumpet, but it's actually got a quote described by Richmond Green Chambers as, quote, definitive tax and NIC's guidance on globally mobile employees. So we get a nice little bit of publicity. Thank you, Amanda, for this. This is the book itself. There is the index. You can see how detailed it is. Then we get to a number of appendices. You can see what they look like. You can also see from this that there are in fact some flowcharts, which again are quite useful. That's another appendix. Then you get the actual detail itself. You have got paragraph numbering, which you can see at the sides there, and you've got a very large amount. There aren't really any footnotes as such at all, but what you have got, for instance, we're dealing with double taxation there, for instance, UK capital gains tax and so forth. Then moving actually to the front, you've got some quite useful points here because there are planning points. Remember, this is a planning book in terms of being an expatriate or expatriate, how you're going to plan what your actual obligations are. So you do have these boxed sections which are very helpful when it's looking specifically at particular points. Again, there's overseas earnings and another planning point there. That's really where I think the feel for the book comes in very well indeed. Now, Amanda's produced an excellent book again. So there's the front page of it. And then we go into the book itself. Let me just share that. There's a preface. Do read the preface, because that will give you an up-to-date idea of what she's put in, which needs to be included from the last time. There's another page of it. Then a further page of the preface there. There's a lot in it, so do read it. Then we get the key issues in planning actually towards the end. It's very helpful. The preface was written in July of this year. I'm recording this in December 2014. This is the contents section. You can see that. It's a heavy book, but it's a paperback. Various chapter headings all the way through. As I say, useful paragraph numbering. You can see all of that. And then we get abbreviations and references. Again, extremely helpful, I think, for anybody involved in this area, because like everyone else, I get confused with what some of these abbreviations actually mean, and I'd worked for the Royal Air Force and we're actually full of them 40 years ago, believe me. Table of statutes there, and then table of international legislation, cases, of course, lots and lots of cases, of course. Then we go straight into the chapter. Chapter 1, domicile and residence in employment situations. Then it kicks off with the background, and then you run all the way through. The book is heavy. It runs to 850 pages. It's an excellent book. Delighted that Amanda's done another edition. Thank you very much for that. This is what we say. Elizabeth, my wife, and I have written a review. We've given it the title, Always a Definitive Text on this complex subject, now in a new edition. And what we say is this. Tax planning for expatriate clients is certainly a specialist area fraught all too often with eye-watering complications, and true to the tradition of TOLLEY'S, however, help is at hand via the new TOLLEY'S Expatriate Tax Planning 2014 to 15. And this Chambers has already defined the work of reference as definitive in previous editions, which I mentioned on the sort of back page, and it continues to be just that. Within this volume of nearly 900 pages, there are, we estimate, hundreds of worked examples which guide the practitioner through the intricacies of advising clients in any number of typical situations. The employee with more than one employment, or the expat who is resident but not ordinarily resident in the United Kingdom. Confused? You won't be with this book at hand. Now, the author, Amanda Sullivan, who's an expert in this field, has the knack of rendering complicated tax situations perfectly clear. Her aim is to guide the reader through the detailed implications of all expatriate tax planning issues, with a focus on how such issues impact on employers and employees. And the book therefore covers the taxation both of United Kingdom employees working abroad and foreign nationals working in the United Kingdom. And just to say, you'll be aware with the massive interest in terms of migration issues in the UK at the moment as we head for the general election in 2015. This is an important area for everybody, and I hope that this book will give people a lot of advice which they need, because it really is a difficult minefield out there. And in fact, Amanda Sullivan does a really good job with it. Now, let me go on. Mitigating and reducing exposure to tax and social security contributions as well is, of course, the primary aim. We must be very careful what words we use here, of course. And for the employer, minimising tax risks is the event of employee non-compliance is also an important consideration. And Sullivan warns that, quote, the tax authorities in many countries, including HMRC in the United Kingdom, have developed their expertise regarding expatriate employees as part of a deliberate focus on areas of potential tax avoidance. And I'm saying here quite clearly that we know what the difference is between planning, mitigation, reducing, and those words, and words like avoidance. Now, avoidance is becoming very, very difficult, almost toxic. So you've got to be very careful what you're talking about. But this is a planning manual, just as a number of the TOLLEY'S books are, and there's nothing at all wrong with looking at how you minimise the amount of your obligation. And I think that's a very important thing for politicians and everybody else, the media, to bear in mind. Now, let's go on from that to say that the book actually now reflects an important shift in emphasis, and the new edition incorporates the changes contained in the Finance Act 2014 together with latest HMRC guidance. And I would say I'm recording this just after the autumn statement in 2014. There's not a great deal more to add because we're now in the season running up to the general election itself, and then we'll see what happens with presumably a budget in late May 2015. And of particular interest is the new anti-avoidance legislation for dual employment contracts to April 2014, and there's a wealth of additional new material besides. And can I just say on that again, the Chancellor of the Exchequer has made certain comments, but this is just a running programme now, I think, until we get to the general election and its aftermath. The book excels, we think, as a good research resource with extensive tables of statutes, statutory instruments, cases and international and European legislation. And to help you navigate, there's a detailed table of contents, numbered paragraphs throughout, and a useful index at the back, which I've shown you, plus a handy hint of abbreviations and references. That in itself is worth it because, as I've said before, it's very difficult sometimes to remember all of these abbreviations, so it does help to have that easy little list. The 10 appendices are full of useful information as well, including, for example, Appendix 4, which lists 8 steps to calculate UK assessable earnings 2013 to 14 onwards. So let me conclude by saying, if your professional remit includes the tax affairs of expatriate UK clients abroad, probably being a solicitor advisor of any sort, financial advisor, or foreign nationals working in the United Kingdom, whether or not you are working with a third-party specialist in this area, you'll need this book, ideally as a permanent fixture on your desk. And the publication date is cited as at July 2014, and as I say, it's valid for the financial year certainly. This is a book again, let me just show you. Again, the appendix at the back are relatively small, but that's what I just wanted to show, which is the steps to calculate UK assessment. I think that's extremely helpful. But I like the book. It's very much the style I've come to get used to. I think you'll find using these books, like company law books and a whole range of the other ones that are produced by a range of the legal publishers, once you get used to how they're structured, it's quite easy to find what you want. The index at the back's good. If you have a detailed contents at the front, you should be able to get your way through the book to look what you're looking for very, very quickly indeed. If as I say, whether you're a lawyer or a financial advisor or whomever so you may be, the answer is that you should have what you need there. So can I thank the author again, Amanda Sullivan, and the people at TOLLEY'S for producing an excellent new edition for this current financial year. Thank you. Bye-bye.